Welcome, everybody. This is Patrick Snow, host of the Patrick and Mary Unstoppable Author Interview Series, where weekly we interview inspiring authors, speakers, coaches, consultants from all over the world to help you get what we all want, which is more time, more money, more freedom, more health, more love, more happiness in life. Today, we have an amazing author and professional speaker and presenter. Her name is Rowena Starling. And if you want to follow along online, you can do so at rowenastarling.com. Again, rowenastarling.com. And I'm going to read your bio as we begin. But before I do, first off, I want you to know she is the author of the brand new book, hot off the press, titled Being a Parent Sucks. Sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. Again, being a parent sucks sometimes. Subtitle 18 Tips to Transform Your Pain into Peace. Rowena Starling is the CEO and founder of Save Your Breath LLC, the Rowena D. Starling Foundation, a mother and author, professional keynote speaker, coach, and philanthropist. She is an emotional resolution specialist, has 2 bachelor degrees from the University of California, Berkeley. Go Bears, and is a retired investment advisor representative and has 50 years extensive training and experience in meditation and what it takes to be happy. She is instrumental in helping mothers eliminate fears and healing family relationships. She went from the devastation of divorce, losing everything, and near homelessness to raising a son who loves her, launching a business, appearing on The Today Show, The O'Reilly Factor, and other national and local TV programs, plus in international radio and in newsprint. She now helps women, and especially mothers in their mid-50s, eliminate the stress and aggravation by teaching them to transcend their fears and recover their power. Rowena's mission is to help mothers and women enjoy the lives more, have more fun, and ward off premature aging, preventable chronic disease, and the chaos brought on by the inherent stresses and aggravation served up by this society and motherhood. Eliminating fears starts the process. Always busy, Rowena's current projects include developing the Rowena D. Starling Foundation, serving mothers through liaison and social services, and serving household through liaison and school districts. Rowena currently lives in Berkeley, California, and in her spare time, she enjoys movies, painting, art, work, and long reflective walks. Again, to follow along online, her website is rowenastarling.com. Again, rowenastarling.com. So it's my pleasure to join me in welcoming our guest author, Miss Rowena Starling. Yay!
Thank you.
All right, so excited about this interview. I can't wait to learn my parenting sucks. I've been thinking about this all week, and I've got 2 boys, and it's true. At times, it's challenging, and it rips your heart out, and then they leave home, and then it rips your soul out. So I want to ask you right out of the gate, how did you come up with this title? Because I think it's brilliant.
Well, the title started out being pretty, even and normal and transforming your pain to fear. And it just all felt just too namby-pamby for me. It was namby-pamby. Everybody says that stuff. I wanted to say what people are not saying. Nobody says the fact that being a parent sucks. And I can thank you for adding the part about sometimes in there, because, when the state of mind, the state of being as a parent that I was in when I started this business was about the fact that on the 6 o'clock news, they do not talk about how suckly it can be emotionally and financially and everything else about having children and raising children. Everybody wants to talk about how rosy and pretty it is. And it is rosy and pretty. And then there's the everyday, which is, I don't know, I think, but it depends on the person though, but for a lot of people, about 60% of that sucks. So I said, well, why don't I just go on and say what everybody is thinking and feeling, but no one dares to say. That's
So
how I came up with the title.
so why does parenting suck sometimes? Specifically, can you give us one or two reasons, one or two ways that sucks?
Well, the main thing is people start out with the whole experience with no system. We have a thousand books now. Actually, when I was a new mother, I couldn't even understand that there were books and things out there to help me. So there's a feeling that there's no roadmap, there's no system in place. And that's suckly because you're kind of flailing about and parenting by default, doing what your parents did or trying to do the opposite of what your parents did. And, that gets messy and the crap starts to pile up over time. So another reason, many other reasons having to do, like you mentioned, with heartache and the chaos of every day having, you need things to happen a certain way and the kid is not feeling it and they're not doing it and they're not listening and you got to get to work. I mean, chaos, illness, unruly children, the actual time it takes. If you were single at any point before having a child, you get to realize there is no time to a large degree for that individual you once were. So, and we won't mention the over $300,000 it takes to even raise them from 0 to 18, which does not include college. So it sucks.
Well, I remember when my older boy was very young. I hadn't read any of those books yet. And we were trying to get him to sleep through the night. So he would sleep maybe from like 8 o'clock until 11:30. And then he'd wake up and I couldn't get him back to sleep. So I put him on my lap, turn on the lights, watch some David Letterman, and then laughing for an hour, hour and a half. And then I couldn't get him to go back to bed. And then later I learned that I was stimulating him in the middle of the night and I couldn't do that. And then finally this wise elderly woman said, you change his diaper, you feed him in a bottle, you don't talk to him, no lights, no stimulation, get him right back to bed. So yeah, it sucked on those nights where I couldn't sleep. So I absolutely love this. I've been so looking forward to this all week. So here's a question for you. What percentage of the time, in your opinion, does it suck to be a parent versus all the blessings and love that we get as a parent? Is it 50-50 or where's that percentage at?
Well, it really does depend on the individual. There are some people who have a temperament and an energy about them that has that suckliness only be about 10 or 20%. So it depends on what is happening with the person and the kind of person that they are, the kind of upbringing they had, their outlook on the whole experience. I mean, there are people actually clamoring to have a child. They're clamoring. They're getting shot up. They're doing all kinds of things to get. And every time I see that, I go, oh dear, they don't know what they're doing. But, hey, we just own, they'll find out like the rest of us did. So I'd say, it depends on the person. It could be 20%, it could be 50%, it could be 80%. It depends on where and it vacillates. It depends on where you are at the time in a stretch of, 5 years or 10 years.
Well, over that 18 to 22 years, it's like you sacrifice your entire life. You sacrifice your free time. You sacrifice your hobbies, your friendships, your family. You sacrifice everything to provide for them. So I totally get it. And that totally makes sense that the percentage is different per each person. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. I was trying to figure out how we met so many years ago. In fact, we've never met in person, but we met by phone somehow. Somebody connected us. Do you recall how that all happened?
I was talking to, I think his name is Daniel Hertzberg or something like that at CEO Space. And I was mentioning that I wanted to write a book, but the prospect of it just was overwhelming. And he said that I can recommend someone for you, and he recommended you to me. And he said, not only will you help me, but you will help me until I don't need help anymore ever. And that was very impressive. I mean that nobody does that. So I think you got the corner on that attitude in helping people get their businesses out.
Well, yeah, I remember Daniel, great guy, and we've had a lot of great conversations. So now it all comes together. So let's go back to your youth. You were born and raised where? What was your childhood like? What was it like growing up for you?
I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. The childhood was, of a poor Black person in the South in Houston. A lot of love and then a lot of personal neglect for me as a child. So I go into that in the book. I don't want to get into the details of all of that here, but the that's the main crux of the matter and what happens in the course of relating to your child. So in the book, I speak as myself, of course, but also a lot of it has to do with what happened to me as a child and the fact that my parent was a certain way and how that affected me and how I then turned it to my own child and how these things are passed on from generation to generation. So that's the long and short of it. Born and raised in Houston, Texas, and have a lot to say about stopping, having the buck stop where you are when it comes to the negative things that we experience coming up.
So how did you get to California in 2 degrees from Berkeley? That's pretty impressive. Like most people can't even get into Berkeley.
I know. Well, I had a little help. I did have affirmative action was in place at the time. So I think that was like the only reason I got into Berkeley at that time. My mother died, and my grandmother brought me out here to California because this is where she lived.
Mm, mm.
And uh, and in the course of getting a job and making some connections, I had a connection from my job that introduced me to the head of admissions at the University of California, Berkeley, who happened to be a Black man at the time. And
Wow.
voila and la, I got in. When I was in high school, I was an honor student. So, that helped.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the main reason I got in the first place.
Sometimes we look back at our childhood and we think, oh, my mom and dad did this wrong, or my dad did this, or my mom did that, and what did they know? And then as we age and as we grow older, we realize that our mom and dads were just kids, for
Yeah,
goodness sake, when they were raising us. I mean,
yeah,
our mom and dads were in their early 20s. What did they know about parenthood? So I want to
exactly.
ask you, what's something positive that you learned from your mother as a child? What's something positive you learned from your grandmother as a teenager? Getting in and moving to California.
Let's see. A positive thing that I learned from my mother is I learned that love is something that is pretty solid, regardless of what is happening, and regardless of the pain that anyone's feeling about anything. There's a central love, that love connection that parent and child have that is unbreakable. It's a bond that you will have like you won't have with anyone else.
Mm,
So the understanding and the feeling of that particular kind of love is what I got from her, and it sustained me. Even though I felt neglected or I felt whatever I was feeling, there was never any question in my mind that she loved me because I was there and she was taking care of me. You
yeah.
know, um, as for my grandmother, she would come out periodically and visit, and I was her favorite, according to everyone. And you have no idea how important it was for me to be the favorite of anybody. So I loved her because she loved me. That goes into the whole conversation of how much love you're spreading around. You sort of attracted into your life, and it's a reciprocal thing. You're
Very
giving off what you're getting. So I was her favorite. That's all that mattered to me.
So your grandmother outlived your mother then. That's kind of
Yes, she
unique.
did. Yeah,
Wow.
she came to the funeral. My mother, I think she had preeclampsia.
Yeah.
She was pregnant with my sister, and just she passed due to that illness. That was the
Mm,
reason uh, why she passed. And my grandmother came out to bring me to California to be with her because we had to be split apart, all my brother and I, and our little sister. So that was the main reason I ended up in California.
wow. Wow.
Even though as a child I dreamed of being in California. You see, this goes to the whole thing of, your dreams come true, or you're creating it yourself all the time. Even in school, I had a substitute teacher that came in, one of many, and talked about California. You know, substitute teachers come in and they can talk about whatever they want to because they don't know the lesson plan and they have to come with their own agenda. And she talked about California extensively, about the golden hills of California and the road. And my uncle would say that the streets were paved with gold. So I had these images in my mind of California. I said, "Oh man, I wanna live in California. I've decided." You know, and I was, you know, in my teens or what do you call it, preteen. And
Yeah.
lo and behold, circumstances move things around so that boom, that's where I am now.
Wow.
Isn't
Wow.
that how? Say, I want you guys to reflect on your lives and see whatever is going on with yourself. You did that. I don't, good or bad, you did it.
Yeah, I love it. Our guest today, Rowena Starling. Her website, rowenastarling.com. Her book is titled Parenting Sucks Sometimes. 18 Tips to Transform Your Pain to Your Peace. So I want to ask you specifically about the book. What do you want your readers to learn as a result of reading the book?
Oh, wow. That's, well, there's a main thing that I want them to learn. I want them to learn that whatever it is that's going on that you think is so hard and so bad, it's not that. It doesn't have to be all that. My son loves to say, "It's not that serious, Mom." So in the moment you're stressed out and you're pressed and you're pressured and you're, you know, the main thing I want them to understand is that they are doing that to themselves. And when you stop doing that to yourself, when you let that go, when you relax, suddenly a door opens here, over there, and things begin to happen the way you want them to happen. And that's the biggest challenge that we have, which is why they're, you know, the book is so, anyway, yeah, that is the main thing I want them to get, is that whatever it is that's going on, first of all, you created it, you can uncreate it. If you
Well,
take responsibility for it, and nobody wants to take responsibility for the crap, you know, but if you take responsibility for the crap and own your power, you have the power to create how dense it is. You can also create how light it can be.
I love it. I love it. And I absolutely love your subtitle, 18 Tips to Transform Your Pain to Your Peace. And I'd love it if you have a copy of your book handy and you want to show that on screen and have a look at the table of contents.
Well, no, the book is you know,
It's
rolling off
almost
the
off the press.
presses.
Yeah, it's at the press right now. So it's perfect time.
It's at the presses any day now.
Any day now. Perfect. Well, let's
I don't
dive
have one to
into
hold up yet.
let's dive into the actual subtitle, 18 Tips to Transform Your Pain to Peace, and spend as much time as you want here. But can you give us specifically some or several of the tips of actually how to transform pain into peace?
Huh. Well, the how to transform is, I want to say it's easy. It's at once the easiest and most difficult thing you'll ever do. So, I mean, even today, I am engaging what I'm writing about in the book. I think you know something about the fact that you teach what you need to learn,
Yeah.
or you reinforce what it is that you need to get. So I'm working with this as well, and I'm working with it because I have proof of it through my own life. Um, the main way to transform your pain to peace is, like I said before, understanding that you have the power to do it. Is going within and reaching that place in yourself. I like to call it our deep, positive, subconscious core. There's a core place inside of each person that contains the actual power to move and change everything that's going on in your life. I mean, to sit there and say that I have a thought and I want to go for it, I mean, you have no idea what a miracle that is. You're literally a miracle. So in transforming, you have to transform the way you think. And then in transforming the way you think about that and understanding who it is you really are, you take that thought inside and begin to transform it from your heart and soul. And in that understanding, in your heart and soul, you begin to transform what shows up in your actual life. I mean, people are always looking at, well, I want this and I want that, and I have to work hard and go get it. And that's fun. And also, you don't have to work that hard to go get it, because again, you have access to this power within yourself. And that's what's working all the time, whether you're working hard or not.
Is that a power of it's a power of manifestation, kind of like what you want wants you back. You're like a living magnet. Whatever energy you put into the world, that energy comes back to you. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's the very thing. So the energy, as much energy as you spend saying, I have this pain or this problem, you're every time you say or put an expression in that direction, you are giving energy to it, and it is manifesting. And that's why you keep having the same issue over and over and over again, even as you have children. So it's important to understand this for yourself, so that you can now help your children to retain their knowledge of this power, because they come out with this. That's why they're so wild and free. We're here to have a good time, and we forget that as we go through time, because we start to believe the crap that our environment feeds us, and then our minds latch on to the negative. I think that has to do with gravity, but that's a whole nother subject. So the transforming your pain to peace has to do with understanding you have the power to do it, grasp that thought and believe it, and then take it inside and access that core part of yourself that does the actual transformation. Relax into it, because it's not about struggle and effort at all. And you will then realize you'll come into a state of being able to walk around and feel more relaxed, be genuinely relaxed, be genuinely happy.
I love it. Relax into your goals, relax into your manifestations.
Relax into it and know that you've got it. And see, knowing that you got it, if you know that you have anything, when you know something, what about knowing, really, really makes you feel good? It's the fact that you know it. I mean, you own it.
Yeah.
And when you own it, when you go inside and own it, then it shows up. It has shown up. Look at everything that you have now.
Yep.
Everything that you have now. You said, well, I want this. I like it this way. So I'm still working with this as well. And in the past, in my past, I have gone in and out of this knowing, and why does one come out of this knowing? If you know and you've been in there and it's been so good, why do you come out? Because the environment and habits of thought keep sucking. What is that? The Godfather. They keep sucking me back in. Did you see The Godfather?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did, right? You remember he said, I tried to get out and it keeps sucking me. That is our environment. That is our negative minds. We go in there and we believe it. I believe I have this illness. I believe this kid is like, oh my God, what's wrong with this? When you believe these things, you keep making it happen. We're a walking magnet, like you said, for what it is we want to have in life or not have. If you keep asking for what you don't have, if you keep giving attention to what you don't have, what you don't want, it shows up for you.
Whatever you focus on expands, it sounds like.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Well, I have 2 new granddaughters, and at 55 years old, I kind of feel I'm too young to be a grandfather, but I have an 11-month-old granddaughter and now a 4-month-old granddaughter. And someone gave me some really wise advice, who is a grandfather himself. He said, never, under any circumstance, tell your children how to raise your grandchildren. Just don't go there. And I've taken that to my heart, and I've never said a word about anything. They could be juggling knives or whatever, and I'm just, zip my lips. I don't say a word. And of course, my 2 boys never ask me for advice about parenting.
Wow.
Oftentimes they're giving me advice as to how to be a better 55-year-old guy. I think that's kind of fun when the teenagers and the 20 and 30 something start giving their parents advice. But if my two kids were to come to you, having read your book, each having a new child, what bit of advice would you give for young parents today?
Uh, there's only that one central thing to understand, and that is to relax. Um, you were saying earlier about when your child was a baby, he would wake up at 8 o'clock and not go and not go to sleep until 11:30 or something like that because you were sitting in front of the TV set stimulating him.
Yep.
You will notice that that is the same problem with adults who can't sleep. If you can't sleep, what you do is you know, get up, get a bottle, and go back to bed. You don't then turn on the electronics because then you will never go to sleep. It's the same idea. You need to relax into what you know.
Mm,
Um, relaxing into a parent, chapter 2 in my book is relaxing into a parent mindset, right?
mm,
For new parents, you know, I don't know. Well, I would say many of them had some sort of single life before they became a parent. And so it's kind of automatic when the child is born that you love them and you want to protect them. So that parent mindset kicks in pretty good. But in my chapter 2, relaxing into the parent mindset, it helps to examine your life and view your life through your own eyes as a child. It's important to, of course, an infant, you can't remember back that far. I can remember back as far as 3 years old. How far
mm.
back can you remember?
I remember about that time being potty trained on this little plastic toilet my mother had on the kitchen floor. She's like, don't get up until you go to the bathroom. Don't get up. So I had to be about 2.5, 3 years old. That's my earliest memory.
Well, fortunately, I had someone else potty train mine, so I still don't know how to do that. But it helps to uh, you have to relax when you got that new little, you know, creature that is not understanding a word you're saying. You just have to relax and kind of go. You got all kinds of books that you can refer to. They're very specific. You can literally Google,
Yep.
you know, specific things that you need to understand. But the main thing is to relax and know that this is going to be the easiest part of parenting.
Mm. Wow.
It may not feel like the easiest part at the time because each stage has its challenge.
Yes.
And so being ready for all of the stages has to do with being relaxed, be clear that you know God is in charge of it all. Now I know people don't like to hear that word, so I would try not to use it too often here in this program, but ultimately that is what you need to do is relax.
So what you're saying is the early years when the kids are babies and they're not sleeping and you're worried about feeding them and if they're growing and whatever, those years it's physically hard in the early days, but as they age up and become teenagers and start having issues, then it's emotionally harder and
It's
emotionally more
everything.
challenging.
Yeah, every stage has its challenge, and if you're not relaxed in the process of that day to day, you will stress yourself out enormously, which people have done, which then leads to all kinds of chronic disease. So
Mm, yeah, I agree.
that's the biggest challenge: is staying relaxed and knowing that everything's going to be okay. Everything is fine.
Well, my father was a school teacher and then he was a golf coach. So he worked late into the evenings and was gone a lot of times at dinner. My mother worked second shift as a nurse in the nursery and she worked 3 to 11 p.m. So I remember in about the seventh, eighth grade, she said, Patrick, this is how you use a washing machine and this is how you use a dryer. So if you want clean clothes, you got to do your own laundry. And oh, by the way, this is how the oven works and this is how the crock pot works. So if you want to eat, this is how you prepare your own food. And I got to tell you, at the time, I felt that was terrible. But now I look back and I realize when I went off to college, they didn't know how to cook. They didn't know how to do their own laundry. So my question is about these helicopter parents. You know, growing up, coaching my kids in Little League, I would see all of these dads that would pull every string and do everything they could at 12 years old, hoping their kid could make the all-star team so they could end up getting drafted for the Yankees one day. And then these helicopter kids, you come to the science fair day, and these parents have built these Apollo 13 rockets, and it's like, there's no way that kindergartner built that rocket. The dad had to do that. The mom had to do that. So what advice do you have for these helicopter parents that are doing everything for their child and not letting the child do their own things?
Well, cut it out. just stop. Just stop. I mean, really, come on. They're not paying attention a lot of times to what it is the kid wants to do. And ultimately, when the kid gets through being under their influence, they're going to do what they want to do anyway. So you can ask them what they want to do, you can expose them to things, and then listen to their answer when you ask them, do you want to do this? And they say no, because kids come here with their own agenda. Kids come here with a feel for what they like and what they don't like. You have to present it to them, and they have a feel for it. And then if they don't want to do it, just let it go. If they want to flunk out of high school, you can tell them, listen, these will be the consequences of you doing that or not doing. Well, and if you explain it to them, articulate, if you're going to take the energy to do it for them, you can take the energy to explain it to them so that they can make a decision. You have to train them to use their own brain. But just stop that, because you're creating chronic disease for yourself.
Yeah, love it. Well, as I mentioned before, my boys are 33 and 29. And as I mentioned, I try not to ever give them advice, but they're constantly giving me advice. Dad, you can do it better this way. Dad, you should consider this. Dad, why don't you do this? So I want to ask you, what advice do you have for those of us who have now adults and we're now trying to parent our adults? Because there's parenting, infants, there's parenting kids, parenting teenagers. They graduate from high school and we're still parenting them. So what's the best advice you have for us as we learn to parent our adults? Should we be their best friend? Should we still have some discipline, set boundaries? How do we parent adults?
Well, once they become adults, you are no longer parenting them. They are now adults. So you are the parent of an adult. This is your opportunity. If you'll notice, in the teenage years, there's a lot of conflict and stress and fighting and pushing back and forth. This is nature's way of weaning the parent from the child and weaning the child from this is a weaning process. Now, and then once they are adults, just let them go. Just let them go. This is your opportunity to reclaim that life that you felt you were robbed of before the child got there. And it's kind of fun to sit back and remember who that person was. Remember, who you were back then before the child got here, right? As far as them telling you what to do, well, we'd like to tell everybody what to do. They're just close to you and know you better than anyone else, and so they feel free to offer their advice. It doesn't mean you have to listen. Now it's your turn to ignore them the way they did when you were trying to talk to them when they were teenagers. So,
turn the table right back.
Right. And as far as influencing what they're doing with their kids, they're moving forward in time. So it is valid that you leave them alone, because they're moving forward in time. Their kids are forward in time. Your reach is not that far. Your reach is not as far as their reach in terms of experience and what they're bringing forth into the world. So it's good to just go and let them do what they need to do, because that is not your reach. Your reach is right here in front of you with what you want to have for your life right now, especially as we become seniors.
So in other words, once we've weaned them, they've left the home, they've gotten their education, they've got their job, they no longer, we've cut them off the payroll, they're no longer asking us for money, then we've done our job and we should be celebrating because the weaning process has completed. And now we should, instead of being sad, we should be happy because we did a good job and they're out on their own.
Well, yeah, that's the ideal situation. There are situations where the weaning has not completely happened, even though the child is an adult. So there are those situations where you're still having to maybe support an adult child or a grandchild, or, and take care of your aging parent. They call it the sandwich generation. See, can you see that through all of this, you need to relax and remain calm?
I love that quote.
because because otherwise you're going to drive yourself nuts trying to keep up with everything. It's not necessary for you to try to keep up with everything. You need to relax and let go and let God, they say. Let go and let God handle
I love
these
it.
things,
I love it.
because it's not going to stop.
Yeah. Well, I have officially graduated from the weaning process. They're both off the payroll, both on their own. But as that was happening, there was a great sadness in my heart. And some people call it empty nest syndrome. There's probably other names for it. And I recently read a quote that said, we need to remember as parents that 75% of the time that we get to spend with our children is over by the age of 12. 90% of the time that we get to spend with our children is over by the age of 18. And for the time that they become adults, only 5% of the time that we get to spend with them is as they are an adult. So yes, that empty nest syndrome is real. What advice do you have for other parents who their kids are out on their own and they have an emptiness inside and a sadness inside? And again,
Well,
that also sucks. So that supports your book title.
yeah, that really does suck. And like I said before, it's important that this is your opportunity to go inside and examine yourself as to why this empty nest syndrome, they call it, is affecting you so much. Are you having guilt about the way you raised them? I mean, go into why you're feeling this. Are you just so needy that you can't let them go? All of these are reasons for you to go inside and soothe that part of yourself that has this dissatisfaction. Instead of congratulating yourself and freeing yourself up, you're making yourself miserable. You go inside and transform that feeling. This is a power that we have that nobody, well, I can't say no, that a lot of people, especially if they're miserable in some way, are not taken advantage of. You have the power to go inside and just move and change. All you have to do is see the way you want it to happen, and then spend time there with the feeling of all that, and then it manifests into your reality. So if you're having empty nest syndrome, you're just kind of a little bit too needy. You're too needy. It'd be a good idea to relax, have a few beverages by the pool or wherever, or in the living room, or wherever you get your relaxation situation, and remember who that person was. I think I said it earlier. This is not rocket science, and it's not complicated. Just remember, well, ask yourself, who is that person before? Why am I so clingy to my child?
Yeah.
And then what is this, what is the gap that I need to fill here right now? What is there a hobby that you have forgotten that you used to love that now you fully have all the time in the world to take advantage of? I mean, there are things that we can do uh to soothe ourselves, and rather than soothe ourselves, we wallow in the misery.
Yeah.
So free yourself up and let that go.
So rediscover the hobbies, the passions, the things of our youth that we had to sacrifice and let go of. Go back to those.
Go back to those or discover new ones.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you may find that now, as you've gone through time, you have new interests that were over here or over there that you had to ignore because you were engaged in this parenting thing full
Yeah.
time. So now you can pick those things up. There's so much of life to enjoy. To ignore all of the joy that life has to offer, wallowing in a bad feeling is very sad.
Yeah.
It's very sad and unnecessary.
Well, we talked about what you want your readers to learn from the book. Overall, what's your goal, or what is the goal of the book?
Well, the goal of the book is to have everybody just swimming in joy.
Hmm.
I mean, it sounds like, pie in the sky, but really, we came here to have fun. And to a large degree, especially after the kids gone, a lot of us have forgotten how to have fun, or how to have healthy fun. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of people turn to things that are unhealthy, spending more time with alcohol or whatnot. But it's not necessary. We have so much fun to be had, and we spend too much time looking back. Why? Because we spent 18 or plus years fully engaged with this other person. So, like with any relationship that wants to move on, you just be grateful for what you learned from that relationship, and now take that information and spring forth into some real fun that you haven't had before.
Wow. The book again is titled Parenting Sucks Sometimes, 18 Tips to Transform Your Pain into Peace. You can get a copy of the book at Amazon.com, or you can go to RowenaStarling.com and pick up a signed copy of the book. But let's talk a little bit about your coaching business. Do you offer a complimentary coaching session? And if so, how can people get a hold of you to schedule that time with you?
Yes, so put my information. Oh, there it is. So the information is showing in the chat. I do offer a 30-minute consultation to find out what it is that a person needs and what they're looking for. And um, the best way to do that is to use the phone number that's showing there, 510-779-2486. I also have an email, rowena@rowenastarling.com. So either one of those, just express your desire to have a conversation and to sort through some things, and we can talk.
And those of you that are watching this recording at some point in the future, again, write that down, 510-779-2486, 510-779-2486. Send Rowena a text with your name and your time zone. She'll get back in touch with you to schedule your complimentary parenting coaching consultation. How about professional speaking? Same way, how can people get a hold of you if they want to book you to speak at their conference or at their
Oh,
event?
yeah, the same way.
All right.
Those are the access numbers.
Email and phone. Very good. I want to ask this. Is there anything that we missed? Anything else that you want to share? Any other nuggets of wisdom that you want to give out to our audience before we finish up?
Let's see. Well, there were, I think we did touch on being parents of adults. Let's see, in chapter 2, there's the thing about being heard. One of the things that parents have an issue with is the child listening to them, having to say the same things over and over and over again. And what I need for them to understand is, the kids do hear you. They just are not interested in what you have to say. So repetition has its place, but it has to be right repetition. You know, the way you say something, where you're coming from, are you angry? All of that is being communicated when you're talking to the child. So you need to clean that up and relax, and then make your communication. It helps to get your message through. And save your breath for saying the warm and loving things that your family longs to hear. The other thing was, and if you're being a parent of adult, I had a note here that in my book, I say, the chaos may simply be the noise occupying your mind, the residual effects of what you perceive as your parenting mistakes, and or your desire to have a friendship with your offspring who do not want the same. So again, let go. That is the biggest message that I have for people in this.
Okay, I got another question that just popped up, and that is the old saying that says the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And I had a friend of mine, coached Little League Baseball with, great guy, but he was just a big drinker, party animal, maybe did some recreational drugs on the side or whatever. And I kind of, loved him, but I loved him from afar. And then it was no surprise that his own, 14, 15, 16-year-old son ends up going down that same path. So what advice do you have for parents in terms of that they should be the change they wish their kids to be? They should be the role model that they want their kids to emulate. all too often times, maybe the dad's in the mob and then the kid ends up becoming a gangster, or going into the mob, like The Godfather. So what's your thoughts on that situation? Because it seems like that happens more than we think.
Well, that can't be helped. I mean, they're looking at you. You are their hero. Parents are the heroes to their kids, and they're looking to the parent to show them the way. You got here first. You paved the way. So what are you paving the way for? To what are you paving the way to? What are you paving the way for? What are they seeing you do? You know, they want to emulate you because they think you are fabulous. They think you are you're the greatest thing since sliced bread.
And if you don't
So,
have boundaries in your life, then the kid's not going to have boundaries.
well, of course. So that has to be understood. I mean, I think everybody understands that the kids are going to do whatever it is the parents are doing. So again, being a parent sucks because now you have to discipline yourself. You have to be the example. And it doesn't have to be a hard thing. See, it feels hard, but it's the relaxation thing is so key. You have no idea how hard and how easy relaxing is,
Mm.
right? So that's the truth. Whatever it is that you're doing, they'll want to do. So a lot of parents who are gangsters take pride in the fact that their kids are going to be gangsters because they like being gangsters.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do about that except try to influence that energetically so that we have fewer and fewer gangsters. But you must understand that whatever it is you're deciding to be and do, the kids are watching and they're saying, "Oh, that's how we do that.
Yeah.
That's what we do."
Yeah.
And pay attention to what you're doing. It's all about you. I mean, you want it to be anyway, right? So it's all about you and how you are feeling and what you are doing. And then your example is what they're following. So clean yourself up, relax. Because what kind of life do you want them to have? If you want them to have a life of power and relaxation and finesse, then you damn well better be doing power, relaxation, and finesse.
Okay, so let's take the flip side of that. Let's say that you as a parent are on the straight and the narrow. You don't drink, you don't do drugs, you meditate, you do this. But then all of a sudden you have a wild child, and that wild child starts drinking in their teenage years and starts, experimenting with drugs. How should a parent, and I will tell you that sucks. That absolutely sucks when you see your child doing something that you would never in your life ever do. How is the best way for a parent to handle that in terms of discipline when they see their child going down the wrong path and they've been on the straight and narrow their whole life?
Well, it's important to learn to have a conversation, a heart to heart, not just one, but an ongoing dialogue about the person and what they're feeling, about what you're feeling. It's coming from somewhere. And so being able to take them aside, sit down, have a conversation. If they're unwilling to sit down and have a conversation, then you're going to have to do this with the power that you have within yourself energetically to begin to influence the energy in that environment, especially if they live with you. It helps a lot that they live with you because your energy does fill the environment you live in.
Mm.
So even passing through the kids, but if the main thing is, why is this happening? Are you talking to them? Are they reacting that way because you neglect them? I mean,
Yeah.
these things don't just happen, they happen just,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So a concerted effort to understand what's going on,
Yeah.
talk to them,
Yeah.
feel them calmly, lovingly, more than once. Don't do a drive-by. Get into the vehicle with them and have a conversation. Help them to learn how to articulate and feel what they're feeling without having the negative aspects of their feelings in their minds driving them off of the deep end.
Mm. Well, I tell you what, Rowena, I wish I would have read your book way long ago, earlier in my life when I was raising my boys. You might be one of the most brilliant women I've ever spoken to on this subject matter of parenting. I love your relaxed and be calm. I wrote this down. This quote is, you just need to relax and remain calm. There have never been more wise words spoken. So grateful for today's interview. Before we close today, I want to ask, are you able to stick around for a little bit of a Q&A with our audience?
Sure.
Okay, and so lastly, I want to ask this question. Our show is called the Patrick and Mary Unstoppable Author Interview Series because Mary's middle name, we call her Mary Unstoppable West. So I want to ask Rowena Starling, how do you define the word unstoppable?
Well, I think that word defines itself, doesn't it? You can't stop. You won't be stopped. You go through doors, you go through walls. There's nothing that keeps you from getting to what it is that you're going for. You cannot be stopped. You know, you're a superhero in that respect. Unstoppable suggests that you are a superhero in whatever endeavor it is that you're engaging in. You won't be stopped. You fall down, you get up, you get knocked down, you get up, you keep coming. That's unstoppable.
I love it. Well, do yourself a favor, everybody. Go out and purchase a copy of Being a Parent Sucks Sometimes. Again, you can pick up a book at Amazon or rowenastarling.com. From my heart to yours, I just want to thank you for this amazing interview. You were incredible. And we're going to turn off the recording and we'll open it up to Q&A.